You're listening to Arise, the podcast that teaches you how to live your life with purpose and confidence. I'm your host, Donna Cherie. Let's get into today's show. Arise. What's up, overcomers? Welcome back to another episode. I'm so glad that you have joined us today, and I have a special guest from the UK. This is the first time that I've ever had a guest from the UK, so I'm super excited about that and just to extend our reach to that area. So today I'm here with Dr. Florenzia. She's a licensed psychologist and relationship coach. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I am honored to be your first UK guest.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, just the power of the internet, we can reach and connect in so many different ways and areas. So I'm grateful for that.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, so to share with the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So yeah, like you said, I am a psychologist and a relationship coach. I help modern day women change their unfulfilling dating habits and relationship experiences and provide them with tools to create relationships that they desire.
Awesome. And what made you get into this field,
Yeah, so I mean, throughout my training as a psychologist, I noticed a pattern of kind of clients that I was seeing or attracting. And we've got this saying as therapists that goes something on the lines of you attract the clients that you need, not necessarily the clients that you want. So over time, and I'm saying, in terms of like years, I noticed that the majority of my clients were women of marginalized backgrounds. So, women of color, women from lower socioeconomical backgrounds who experienced a wide range of mental health difficulties. So anxiety, depression, personality disorders, etc. But as I unpacked, the difficulties that they were having, what kept consistent was that they had experienced attachment trauma, relationship trauma, and that they were experiencing difficulties in their relationships. So that was a recurring pattern. And by the end of it, or by the end of my training, I thought, well, clearly there is a need for women to unlearn relationship patterns, but not just unlearn, also giving them the knowledge and the tools to have better and healthier relationships. And especially in this day and age with online dating and, human interaction, although yes, like you said, it is a lot easier to reach out to people, all over the world. Like the world is literally in the palm of your hands now. But interacting with people, developing relationships have become a bit more complex. So that's why I think it was incredibly important for me to, do this work. And not only from, my professional experience, I have also gone through, attachment trauma and relationship trauma myself. So not only am I, the kind of quote unquote expert in the room in terms of like my professional background, but I'm an expert by experience as well, because I've gone through it myself. So I know what it's like and I know the struggle that comes along with that. So if I can do anything to prevent another woman from making the same mistakes as I have, or, keep them stuck in these patterns, then I'm willing to do that.
Okay, yeah, and that's not easy work, when we're trying to help individuals reframe their mindset or deal with patterns that are not serving them well. It really takes some time. And you said two words that stood out to me when you just spoke, and that was relationship trauma or attachment trauma. Can you define in your own words what that means or what that means to you in case somebody's listening and they don't necessarily know what that is or what that looks like because it has come like a pattern or normalcy to them?
Yeah, sure, of course. So attachment as a concept, as a psychological concept that basically explains how, as children, we develop our understanding of what relationships are and what relationships look like, what it feels like. So our first experience of relationships, stems from when we were kids and when we are raised by, our caregivers. And in most cases, our parents or one parent or a very, very close relative who's looking after us. So those are the first examples. And if you had a caregiver who was inconsistent, who wasn't emotionally available, who was quite punitive or quite harsh. They didn't really show a lot of love and affection or any softness. That then, develops your, I would say, prototype or your blueprint, if you like, of what a relationship should look like. So that is how attachment trauma is developed, and that it can then go hand in hand into relationship trauma, because as humans we are very what's the word, we like to feel familiar, or we like to feel comfortable within a familiar situation. So if what you're used to is chaos, unsafety, unpredictability, and the list goes on, then you're more likely to repeat that as an adult within your adult relationships. So you would be more likely to seek out relationships that are unstable, that are unpredictable, that don't fulfill your needs, and etc. And obviously, in terms of relationship trauma in and of itself, in terms of how you can experience it, that is a spectrum, right? Because it can be something as simple as having a partner that doesn't communicate very well, or doesn't communicate or attend to your communication needs, for example. But you've also got it on the other end of the spectrum, where you are repeatedly in a abusive, like emotionally, physically, financially, etc., abusive relationship. So there's a spectrum, but all of that does stem from what feels familiar to us.
That's a lot. That's a lot. And I just think about like as you were speaking, just thinking about the different relationships that I've had, or that people have in general. Like, when do they get to that point to where they just say like, oh man, this isn't serving me well and I need to do something about it?
So are you
Like,
asking the point when they realize that?
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it differs per person, because there are people out there who are in very abusive relationships, and they think that that is just normal, right? And they just go along with it because they just don't know any different. Or perhaps, they see in their environment, like their friends or maybe other family members who are in similar relationships, and obviously they may think that that is normal, so then they don't necessarily question it, right? But there are other people, or women, who may wake up one day and think, okay, yeah, I don't know what's going on, but I don't feel right. I'm depressed, I'm anxious all of the time. I feel like I can't confide in my partner, or I feel like, that there is this repeated cycle of maybe arguments, or you may be asking for something and it's getting, dismissed, and you're not quite sure why. So, that process of starting to question what is going on for you, that is often a catalyst for, okay, well, whatever it is that's going on is, I don't feel safe, I don't feel good, but what is it that I can do? Right. So, yeah, so that is usually when women are at like, I don't know what's going on, but whatever it is, I don't want it. That is usually the point when I see women, because they are tired, they're fed up and exhausted, and they just don't know what the next move is, or what the next decision it is that they need to make for themselves. So yeah, so it's definitely a process, and some people get there quicker than others. I mean, for some it may take years for them to feel like they're in the position to want to make a change, because change is difficult, change is uncomfortable, right? Especially if you don't know what change looks like for you. So it differs per person.
Okay, and based on your experience, what are some common patterns or challenges that women face in long-term unfulfilling relationships?
Yeah, so I mean, in this day and age, what is quite common, or what I've experienced in my professional experience, is that women may have it all. They may have the career that they want. They may have, the house that they want. They may have the car and things, but they feel like they're not meeting men who are, on their standards, let's say, so that men that are stable within their careers, men who are, driven, etc. And then they feel stuck, because then it's like they feel like they have to settle for less than they deserve, or that they have to settle in order to, have kids, most likely, because again, I'm working with women who are in their 30s, like maybe early 40s or mid 40s or so. And some, do have, they do want to, have kids or think of having children. And they feel like, they keep meeting men who they don't necessarily want to partner with. But in the back of their mind, they're like, well, if I turn a blind eye to some of these things, at least, I do have someone that I can, basically, yeah, I don't know, just shack up with. That is basically that is the term that's coming to mind. I literally just, for the sake of saying that, okay, you're partnered and, you want to have kids and you want to feel like you're settled, they feel like they've got no other option. But I would say, I would argue that you've got loads of options. It's just that you haven't expanded yourself enough to see the options out there. So it would require getting out of your comfort zone and see what's out there for yourself, because you'd be surprised. I mean, I've helped women who were single for a very long time, and constantly swiping away in their town or in their city. But once, I encouraged them to think, okay, well, how about you swipe in a different country? Let's see how that works. And then, within a matter of months, they meet someone that actually lives abroad. They take a trip or two, and they're incredibly happy, and they match really well. I mean, one of them actually left London to go and live, abroad for a while, to be with a person that she met online. So like, it's possible, in 2023, with the internet that we have, with the phones that we have, there is a world of possibilities out there, but you have to be willing to put yourself out there, expand your horizon, expand your comfort zone, and willing to take a risk as well, because obviously some of these things also require taking a bit of a risk. But if it's
Absolutely.
for the what life you want, then yeah.
Yeah, I guess a person, a woman would have to figure out if that's something that she's willing to do. Because I think it's one thing to like get out of your comfort zone, but then there's a whole nother thing to be like literally afraid or terrified to do something. And so they would have to deal with that part first in order to move forward. Because like I have a friend, she met a guy, she lives here in North Carolina, but through another friend, she met someone in Africa and like
Mm,
but they really hit it off really well. And
mhm,
I've never seen her like this happy in a relationship before, and she went to go see him and all that. But for someone else, I mean, they may be like, oh, that's crazy, because even in my own mind I was like, I don't know if I would go. It seems extreme, but it may not be extreme for her. So
mm. Yeah. Well, then again, I wouldn't necessarily advise from the get-go, well, just go abroad and find a man abroad. Well, I would frame it as, okay, you've matched with this guy of if you've been speaking to this guy and he lives abroad. Why not make it a trip, a solo trip, or maybe a trip with your friends and make that the focus of the trip, that you're there on holiday and you're there to enjoy your time. And obviously the bonus would be to meet up with the guy that you're speaking to and just see it. Just have a couple of dates like you would as you were, at home, but don't make it the sole kind of focus of your trip, because then you would obviously be putting a lot of pressure on
mhm.
yourself and on the other person, and and you don't necessarily want to make unnecessary risk either. You just have to be sensible about it, but that is also an option. And if you think, okay, well, I don't really know about that whole traveling or whatever else, then I would say, well, look at what your current kind of behavior is when it comes to dating. Do you meet men only on a certain dating app or dating apps? Do you only meet men when you go out to, a day party, or when you go out at night or whatever? Or do you mean men at church? Like, what is the pattern? And analyze it, like literally just do an audit of what has worked, what doesn't work, what are some of the common kind of patterns that you've noticed with the type of men that you're meeting at this specific place? Is it something that you can tweak and make and do something about it, or is it just something about that specific place that you meet these type of men? It's just something that you just have to basically analyze yourself. And if you've noticed that, okay, well, actually, the places where I'm meeting men are just not, I don't really seem to attract the type of caliber of man that I want, then you have to wonder, okay, well, what are maybe other places that I haven't necessarily been before where, men that I would, men that I'm attracted to, but men that, are on the level that I want them to be at, where would they be? Where would they hang out? And place yourself there. And meet them there. Like, yeah, it's like sometimes we make things a lot harder than it needs to be in our minds, and we try to, find excuses as to like why we can't kind of expand ourselves. But sometimes we just have to tweak and do things that we wouldn't normally do, because how can you expect different results if you're doing the same thing over and over again? That doesn't make sense, you know so go to a what you call those places nowadays, where people that work from home but go to like a
Oh, like a
like a
co-working?
space. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So go to like a co-working space, for instance, or go to like a cafe somewhere, or go to a really nice wine bar somewhere. And also, I wouldn't suggest you go with friends, because some men might not feel comfortable approaching women when they're with their friends. Like men's egos are very, very fragile, so you have to bear that in mind. But yeah, go on your own, go for an hour or two, and yeah, and just place yourself there. Do your thing, like, work a little bit, or maybe read a book. I wouldn't suggest you wear earphones though, but do something, but still, make yourself available. Look up from time to time. Make eye contact. Smile. Whatever, or just walk up to someone if you've got the guts to do that, and just say, well, just say hi. Just say hi. Because, yeah, I mean, a lot of women are like too scared to like walk up to a man, but you can literally just say hi. How are you? What are you up to? I'm new here. Have you been here before? Like, you're not
Mhm.
actively trying to seduce him or anything. You're
Mhm.
making conversation, and as the conversation goes, you will see whether he's interested or not. And then, if if well, most of the women that I work with want a masculine man. If he is a masculine man, he will then take the lead, and take your number, and then take it from there. Or so it really doesn't have to be that hard.
Yeah. And if I could just add something in there, I mean, I'm not no relationship expert, but just living, like, just be yourself, because you don't want to start off trying to keep up with something that you're really not. So like, even if you meet somebody and you figure out you're having this conversation and you're not compatible, it's okay. Like, don't try to force it or try to make it work, but just move on. But don't get so attached or be someone that you're not, just to be in a relationship.
Absolutely. I mean, yes, yes. I'm glad. No, I'm glad you mentioned it, because, yeah, you need to think about what it is that makes you happy, what is it that makes you feel fulfilled, or what makes you you, and how can someone nicely slide into that, right? How can they enrich what you already have got going on? That is
Yes,
that.
and
That's all we're trying to do here.
yes, enrich, so we can enrich each other. I love that.
Yes, absolutely.
So, how can a woman rebuild her self-esteem after a harsh breakup? Because that's the reality too. Like, you've been in this relationship, you realize that it didn't work, or you thought it was working, and then you find out one day that they went out of the relationship. So, how can a woman rebuild her self-esteem after that?
Yes. It all starts with self-love. And I feel like self-love as a term or concept has really been bastardized by social media. So, so when like sometimes when I hear self-love, I'm like rolling my eyes, and because it's very, how people conceptualize it is very superficial. But what I mean by self-love is you need to invest time and effort into rebuilding a relationship that you have with yourself. So essentially, I mean, from a therapeutic standpoint, it's like reparenting yourself. So how would you want, like, if you made, okay, maybe for instance, just imagine if you had a little nephew or a little cousin, or your own child, and they're really young and really fragile. What is it, how would you want to treat them, right? You would want to treat them with all of the care and all of the compassion and all of the patience, right? And that is what you have to do for yourself, giving yourself time to feel all of the emotions, not punish yourself for having emotions or feeling triggered, because going through a harsh relationship, an abusive relationship, can really do something to your sense of self, and in some cases it can really wreck your trust in yourself. So it will take time, but allowing yourself that time, that is imperative. So one, the compassion piece, right? Now, secondly, looking around you and rebuilding your community, because again, more often than not, in abusive relationships, or relationships where the power dynamic was imbalanced, our immediate circles are often impacted. So we may not have as many friends as we did before we went into the relationship, or we may not have, we may not be as close to our siblings before we went into the relationship, because more often than not we become socially isolated as a result of these relationships, right? So you need to build your community, rebuild a relationship with people that you can trust. And also, meeting new people, meeting like-minded women. You'd be surprised, again, with the internet, you can reach out to so many women who have gone through a similar experience to you. You can reach out to women who can inspire you, who can, hold you accountable as well. Like there's so many options out there, but you have to be willing to reach out. So that's the second. And the last bit, I would say, is trying to develop ways in which you would feel more confident or more comfortable in your skin. So developing that mind and body relationship. So, for instance, when I went through my own, abusive relationship, my self-confidence was non-existent. Like, I honestly thought that I was the most disgusting person on earth, because it was just fed into me for so long that I wasn't worth anything, that nobody's going to find me attractive, and, nobody wants me, and all of these things. So that then became like how I conceptualized myself, how I understood myself, is that nobody want to be near me. But as I allowed time for myself to heal and rediscovered myself, I started to look at, okay, well, how can I develop a better relationship with myself? Go to the gym, even though I hate going to the gym, but there's something about having that hour to just focus on lifting weights, just focusing purely on that. You'd be surprised how zoned out you then get by just focusing on what it is that you're trying to do for that hour. And that is what I needed for me, and like engaging my body right in those exercises. So that really helped me. And then as I continued my my gym journey, I started to notice a change in my body, and I started to feel more energized, started to feel good, and things. I thought, oh, okay. So yeah, although I find it a real trek to go to the gym, but I know that emotionally and psychologically it helps me tremendously. So that's what I've been doing for years. And then meditation, learning how to breathe properly, so through breathing exercises, that is helpful. Practicing mindfulness, how does my body react to certain situations, or when I feel triggered, how do I notice when I'm triggered? How can I calm myself down? What is it that I need? What exercises do I need to do? So yeah, so there's a lot that goes into that process. It's not necessarily, I'm not saying that you can rebuild your confidence overnight, but once you actively put in processes, I would say, to keep rebuilding what has been lost, then before you know it, you turn around and you think, I can't even recognize that person that I was. And like now, like if I look back at when I broke up with my ex, how many years ago now? I think it's like over 6-7 years ago now. I can't recognize that young girl, really. I can't recognize her at all. I've made leaps since then, and it's all through just pushing myself out of my comfort zone, just a bit by bit, and just rebuilding what my life looked like. So yeah. It's possible.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It is possible. It is possible. And now probably nobody can tell you anything different.
Mm, like honestly, I've been in the best place now for the last, I would say, like 19 years. Well, not 19 years. Since 2019. What's the year before? Yeah, the year before COVID, right? Yeah. So 2019, that is when like a lot happened. And the years before that was kind of like leading up to that. But since 2019 and now transformed when I started to know about psychology, and how it impacts people, and how you can, find ways to claim power or reclaim power that you've lost. That for me was so incredibly important. And then, through, like I said, through reaching out to other women, hearing other women's stories, right? There was a time when Clubhouse was a thing. And I was always on Clubhouse just listening to women's stories. And I was thinking to myself, my God, so what I went through, that was not because there was inherently something wrong with me. It's because in society, that there is this conditioning where women are more often than not, victimized through, power imbalances, or patriarchal, how would I say it? Yeah, systems essentially. And so it's a global issue that we're fighting. And that really, although it may sound a bit odd, but for me, that really alleviated a lot of worry, and it alleviated a lot of the heaviness from it, because I knew that I'm not alone. There's a whole world of women out there who have gone through something similar to me, and they're still fighting, they're still thriving, and they are reaching out because they want to share their love and their support. So that is what kept me going. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
so it made a world of difference. Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yes, we definitely need community, and it's so true. Like just reaching out to others and listening, it's like, man, yeah, I can do this too. I can do something and rewire my brain too, to even make better choices, to be aware, to have a greater awareness of when it does come to dating and building relationships, and being able to recognize red flags. That's important too. So how do you support women in building the courage to follow their dreams, and especially if those dreams have been suppressed or neglected due to their relationship struggles?
Yeah, so what I tend to do with my clients is we break down what their individual value systems are. So I go through an exercise, which I won't go into great detail because obviously I don't want to take up too much time. But for instance, we identify five, or at least five things, or experiences that that they value, and then we analyze how much of that is reflected in your current day to day. And more often than not, because again, their beliefs, or their desires or their hopes have been suppressed, it most likely isn't reflected in their day to day. So then we look at, okay, well, what needs to happen, or what needs to shift in order for you to incorporate that into your life. So for instance, I had a client who identified that family to her was incredibly important, but because of her relationship, she was very isolated. She didn't really have much contact with her family, and she had a very, troubled upbringing. So she did have a bit of a distorted view of what family meant to her. So it brought up a lot of anxiety for her. So as we, went along to think about, what it would look like for her and what we can do about it, she then identified, okay, well, actually, even though in my mind I thought, okay, well, the whole of my whole family system, they're all, it's all, negative, or they're not my people. But actually, my sister, that's what she said. My sister, I've got a really good relationship with her, but I just don't really see her that often. I don't really speak to her that often, and I really miss her, and I want to reconnect with her. I was like, okay, well, let's start there then. Reach out to your sister, see what she says. The worst thing is already happening, that you don't have contact with her, right? So reach out and then see. And then, the sister was very receptive, and they kept calling back and forth. And then from calling went to FaceTiming, from FaceTiming went to visiting, from visiting went to taking trips together. So it is, honestly, sometimes we just need that one little step forward and managing the uncertainty of it, because the last thing we all, we want to experience is rejection, right? We don't want to feel rejected. We don't want to feel like we made a mistake. We don't want to feel flat on our faces. But sometimes you need to take that risk for you to feel incredibly uncomfortable in order to get what you want. And that's where I come in. I hold your hand through it. We map it out. You think about next steps, and I hold your hand through it all the way. But honestly, it doesn't take much for you to see a drastic change in your life, as long as you know what the next steps are.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's beautiful. And just by taking that small step, how it can lead to big changes in our lives and just in our relationships. Because even just thinking about your client, if she never just took that small step, then she would have still been, in the same cycle. But because she was able to step out, look at what it's doing for her relationship. And it's something that she cares about. It's her value, family, and she's able to build upon that. It's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Dr. Florenzia, what's one last thing, words of hope or anything regarding relationships or identity of your choice that you like to share or leave with the audience today?
I would say my last word is, don't be afraid to take the next step, because you don't know what is around the corner. Your breakthrough could just be around the corner. But if you're too afraid to take the next step, you remain where you are. And also, don't be afraid to ask for help, because again, especially when working with women of color, we have, or a lot of us have, gone through so many traumas in our lives, right? Which then feeds into the need to be self-reliant, to be hyper independent. And I mean, in the social media world, it's called, being masculine, and or and not tapping into your feminine energy. But that is essentially what it is. It's a trauma response, because in our experience, we have not been able to rely on people to look after us, or to, take care of our needs, or a lot of us anyway, obviously not to generalize. But that is our experience. So then, of course, you're not going to ask for help. But asking for help, asking for someone to hold your hand, reaching out to other people, to have conversation or to ask for help, that in and of itself will push you forward. That will give you the push you need. So those are the two things that I would say.
And where can people stay connected with you?
Yes. So, firstly, you can find me on socials at Dr. Florencia. So CIA at the end, and then an underscore. And yeah, I'm mostly available on Instagram and YouTube. That's where I'm the most active, but you can find other accounts on other socials as well. Other than that, I have got a freebie that I would love to share with your audience, and that's my partner compatibility assessment. It's called the Power of Pause workbook. So your audience can find it at thepowerofpause.info/workbook. And essentially what it does is, whether you're single and dating, or you're seeing someone new, or you are in a new relationship, and you think to yourself, I'm seeing behavior that's I just don't really know what to do with this. Or, what I come across quite a lot is when a guy doesn't text you back for a while and you wonder to yourself, well, should I text back? Should I not? What does this mean? What do I do? That is very common. So the workbook is actually based on that scenario, but it can be applicable to other scenarios as well. And yeah, what it basically does is I guide you through 4 steps value-based system to analyze what to do about it, and to think about, well, does this behavior match up with what you value in a relationship and what you value in life? More often than not, it doesn't. So, so then what can we do about it, right? Like, that should be your sign to take the next step. But yeah, or on the other hand, if the behavior does match up with what you think is important, then obviously, continue to nurture the relationship. But yeah, so that is what the workbook is. So I hope your audience will find it helpful. And yeah, I want you to complete the workbook. Tag me, take a screenshot and tag me on the Instagram. I would love to see your results, or DM me. That's fine as well. So yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate the conversation, and I hope to have you back again soon.
I would love to return. I would love it. It was a really good conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, Overcomers. Until next time. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Hey Overcomers, thanks for tuning in. For more information, head on over to DonnaCherie.com. If you want to find me online, I'm at I am Donna Cherie on Instagram and Facebook. And of course, if you love the show, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.